fantastic young couple who are absolute superstars. Had the pleasure of meeting them this last spring, and I cannot wait to hear them. So please bring to the stage Adam and Green. It's a good-looking suit, too, man. Thanks for being here, man. Thanks. Thank you. Hey. Thank you.
So we have the pleasure of being the youngest couple to take the Multiply stage. And as being youthful, one of the number one questions I'm often asked is, how have you been so successful at such a young age? I hit the top rank in our company at 25 years old. So to hit the top that quickly and at that age, it generates a lot of questions. And so I've been asked this question a lot. And they know it's not because I tell good jokes, because I'm not that funny. They know I'm not that charming, not like Jordan Kemper. But as I've given a few different answers, but as I analyzed it over the past, couple months preparing for this presentation, I realized that I really leveraged the law of environment. And the law of the environment states that growth thrives in conducive environments. In the past, in recent years, I've been in 4 separate environments. And as we know from Jim Rohn, we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So when I was reading John's book, I got to this statistic, and it really jumped out at me. It was a Harvard statistic, a Harvard study, and it stated that up to 95% of our success or failure is determined by our reference group, or the people who we habitually associate with. 95% of our success and failure is determined by the people we associate with. So I'm looking at that stat and kind of feeling maybe a little bit young and bashful and going maybe I'm the 5%. Not like I want to challenge John's law, not after earlier on. I don't want to say his law is wrong. I'm maybe I'm not 5%. Maybe I'm just that good. So I looked at the past 4 environments that I've been in. Longest back, I was in high school. In high school, I started going to church. In Christian school, merged into the public school. And so I started surrounding myself with new people. They invited me to youth group. I started going to Sundays. And I was surrounded by that environment for 3 years. I developed great moral character. I thought I was an outstanding young individual. I did not cause my parents any problems. I wasn't throwing parties at their household. And I thought I was a pretty decent student going into college. That's environment 1. Moved to environment 2, I go to post-secondary, I go to college, and it took me not 3 weeks of being in a new environment with new people to completely cast aside my values, my morals, and completely engulf myself in a new environment. In this environment, instead of finding my answers in the bottom of a book, I found my answers in the bottom of a bottle. Because living on a college residence at 18 years old, isn't exactly maybe the most affirming environment for a young adult fresh out of high school. And so I completely changed who I was based on that environment. Now, luckily, I only went to school for 2 years, and I got out of that environment. I got a job. I got employed as a personal trainer. Luckily for me, I worked at a high-end private personal training facility. So although I was still paid maybe not what I wanted to earn, I at least had the ability to be surrounded by people who were business owners, people who had a little bit extra money every month that they could afford a private personal trainer. So I got to learn from these individuals. I was a pretty good employee. I was great at my job. And I luckily had a business owner, a boss, who was also very entrepreneurially minded. And so I was cultivated in my youth to think a little differently than maybe the average personal trainer at a big box store. I left personal training, and for the past 5 years, I've been a full-time network marketing professional, and I've also excelled in that area. And so when I started looking at these 4 environments, I wasn't in the 5%. I was 100% like everybody else, just like you. 95% of our success is dictated by our environment. I became really good at becoming excellent in what environment I was in, whether it was high school, college, job environment, or network marketing. So I also know that I need to be completely conscious of the environment I'm putting myself in, because I, like many people, lack the discipline to hold true to my values in a different environment.
So unlike Adam in high school, being the good kid that he was, in high school I quickly got into an environment and a group of friends where I didn't like school. I didn't like homework or going to class. So I literally just looked forward to the weekend, hanging out with my friends, going to parties on the weekend. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of kids do that and it can be kind of harmless, but I started getting like, that's all I wanted to do. Like I was kind of the one that, like Adam said, he was the one in his environment that like tried to be the best at what he was doing. I was also that way in the party environment, and I would indulge frequently in adult beverages very often. And it was not exactly, you know, I'd lie to my parents all the time, just in that environment. And that continued over until after high school. I graduated, and I said, you know, I don't really like school, so I don't really have a career that I'm wanting to do, so I'm just not going to go to college. I'm going to skip this year, and I'm going to waitress part-time. And the reason I wanted to do it part-time is because I wanted more time to be able to party the rest of the time. And so I was trying to, like, find this fulfillment. Like, I just kept chasing, like, oh, maybe, like, the next event or the next party will be, like, so much fun, and I'll get to meet, like, you know, a guy or whatever. I thought it would fulfill me. And so I was in this downward spiral. Every time I would go out and drink and party, it got more and more. Like, I'd wake up the next morning and feel kind of like, okay, that was kind of crappy. Like, I feel kind of gross today, but maybe I'll just drink more next time. And the next weekend, I'd do it all again and get even more intoxicated. And it was just this downward spiral. And I finally got to this place about a year after graduating, roughly. I just was in this really, really low place. Like, what is my purpose on this earth? Like, I felt so lost, so hopeless. And around that time, one of my friends from middle school, who we were best friends in middle school, and we kind of drifted apart in high school because she was clearly following this law, and she was disassociating with me because we were not going down the same path. And she invited me to church with her. And I had never been to this church. I'd never been to this type of environment, but for some reason I agreed to go. And so I went with her, and the first thing I remember was just the atmosphere of the room. Like, as soon as I walked in, just the life and the passion, and just, you could just feel it. It was like this presence in the room. And I just remember thinking, like, whoa, like this is pretty cool. And then the next thing I remember noticing was that there was a lot of people there that were my age, like people roughly in my peer group, but they were full of life and passion and joy, and they were having fun, but they weren't doing the things that I had thought you had to do to have fun, and they weren't with the people that I was normally hanging out with. And so I got to this place where I was like, okay, I need to, you know, what are the characteristics that these people have? What are their qualities, and why am I so attracted to this? So what I had to do, and you can write this down, one thing you need to do when you're in an environment that you feel maybe is not where you're supposed to be, is assess the characteristics of the people that are around you currently. And then when you go to that new environment and you feel like that's where you're supposed to be, assess the characteristics of the people in that environment and say, is that who I want to become? Because when I came to this place of this new environment, I could see that people they had integrity, they had passion, they had hope, they had life, and that was what I wanted. And that was the day that I decided I want to be different and I want change.
So we now understand that our environment pretty much completely dictates our future. We can't outsmart the law of environment. We can't beat it. It is an unbeatable law. So for our business, one of the best things that we can do for ourselves and our team members is put ourselves in a growth environment consistently. So for everyone in this room and everyone at home, the best environment that you should be plugging into consistently is your company convention. This is a non-negotiable. Every single person needs to be in attendance at their company convention because growth needs to be a priority. We follow the example of our organization, our leadership. So if we don't go to something, we can't expect somebody else to go to something. And every single transformational experience I've had has come from a live event. I have never had a breakthrough sitting at home in my comfort zone. It has always come from getting out of my comfort zone, getting in a room with people who were greater than me, who I could learn from, and being hungry for growth. So everyone after this event should be registering for their company convention right away. This is a non-negotiable. You might say, I can't afford to go to convention. There's a lot of ways to get creative, but I would counter that. You can't afford to not be at your company convention. Again, if you're looking to commit to growth, you need to be committed to being in that environment. I'm so glad you guys are here today and at home. I hope that you will make the commitment to get the program, because that's a way that you can consistently put yourself every single week in that environment of people who are hungry for growth. Now, when you go into these environments, there is different characteristics of people in these environments. Sue Enquist, she's an NCAA coach, one of the top 5 coaches of all time. She's espoused a 33% rule. I'm going to call it the rule of thirds, and that every single person in a room like this would fit into one of the 3 thirds. There's a bottom third, a middle third, and a top third. The bottom third, these people, no matter what's going on, they kind of suck the life out of the event and the people around them. Nothing is ever good enough, things aren't ever going right, and they remove energy and motivation from the room. So when you go to your convention, understand that that isn't just the first step. When you're at the convention, it's important to see who you're spending your time with. I encourage you to get to the front of the room as possible, because I can tell you the top third hangs out at the front of the room. But watch out, when the breakout sessions are a little bit full, and who you're listening to. There's nothing that, again, give some grace to your companies. It's, especially if you're in a booming business, it's hard to kind of grow these events. If a breakout room is full and you couldn't get in, don't be the person who's complaining about, the breakout's full, I couldn't get in, I missed 2 sessions. Maybe the person you're talking to is a 6-figure earner and you don't even know it, and they might be disassociating from you a little bit. So we got these bottom thirds, the middle third. They're happy and positive when things are well, but they're down in times of adversity. They're just riding the roller coaster of feelings and emotions, and that's a dangerous spot to be, because you can quickly find yourself at that bottom third. It's very easy to get caught there. And then there's this top third, and these people maintain a positive attitude in tough times. They are leaders, influencers, they are game changers for their business, and you want to be associating yourselves and becoming like that top third. It's really important to not get caught in the bottom. So convention is your number one growth environment. This John Maxwell program is a way that you can be plugging in. Now, when you're at these environments, it's not always a comfortable experience, and that's important. Growth never comes from inside your comfort zone. And I can tell you, it's not always comfortable to hang around people who are greater than you, but it always is profitable to be hanging around with people who are greater than you. So you can never, ever, ever underestimate the importance of a single live event.
And speaking of events, when I was 18, around this time, I honestly don't even know the timeline exactly, but around this time when I was, exposed to the new environment, my mom, I was living at home, and she convinced me to come to this meeting with her. And I was like, fine, I'll go with you, because she kept trying to get me to go. I didn't even know what it was, but I was like, fine, I'll go. So I drove there with my mom, and I walk in, and the first person that I meet is this young man, and he's dressed all sharp, and he's charming, and he has this big grin on his face, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of glad I came now. Thanks, Mom. And so I sat in the front row, and he started talking, about the company and about the opportunity, and I'm sitting there like, oh, that's really awesome. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm just like planning how many kids we're going to have, when our wedding is going to be. And so, needless to say, I pursued him because I saw something in him. I really related to him. I was exposed to the environment that he was in, which was also very attractive to me. And so I pursued him, and we started dating, and I started going to more and more of these events with him. And I started seeing even other environments where people had those characteristics, that people wanted growth, people wanted change, people were uplifting, they weren't dragging you down, there wasn't a bunch of drama, people were trying to build you up. And so that was a big part of my growth as well for my environment change. But through all of this, when I was trying to transition my lifestyle from my old friends group to a new environment, it was hard and it was slow. And the reason it was hard for me was because I have a tendency to be a people pleaser. and I kind of hate confrontation, like a lot. So anytime like a friend would be offended with me or like, why don't you want to do the things you used to do? You're not fun anymore or whatever. Like it would really be hard for me to say no, and I would get like, oh my gosh, oh, they think I'm not fun, like whatever. So that was really hard, but I had to come to this place, and finally, through God's grace, he's brought me, and I'm not obviously anywhere, like I still have so much growth, but he's brought me out of that lifestyle, and I had to realize that the dreams and the purpose that God has put in my life, they're not worth compromising just because it's uncomfortable, and I hate confrontation. And that's actually selfish for me. Because I hate confrontation, I'm just going to like give in to people. So yeah, just make sure you're not compromising when people do get critical and people feel offended that you're not spending time with them anymore. Just make sure you're remembering why and you're remembering your purpose behind it.
So depending on where you're at in life, this law can be a very hard law to handle, or you might be just sitting here feeling pretty good about yourself right now. But understand that 95% of our success or failure is based upon our reference group. This is fundamental. We can, like all the other 14 laws, function in your environment. Like everything is built upon this, because you can do everything else right, but if everyone else around you, well, if you're doing everything else right, you're not going to be in this environment. But you get what I'm saying here. This is core stuff. So leaving this event, if you are not in the proper environment, you've got some maybe tough choices to make, some conversations to be had. But it is just so crucial to be in an environment that is conducive to growth. In the book, John gives you a 10-step checklist, what he looks at for his growth environment. And we had to recently look through that checklist and take a look at where we fit in that category, because it's really easy when you get to the top, especially if you're young and you've done it early and you've done it relatively painless. It's really easy to get complacent and to get lazy and to lose that hunger. And so we were comfortable. We paid off our house. It was just really easy to stay where we were at. And I found myself not wanting to move because I was kind of lazy and I didn't want to pack. I didn't have to worry about spending time looking at houses. It was easier to stay where I was at. And I started realizing I was making a decision based on what was easy. And I know that if we do what is easy in life, our life will be hard. And if you do what is hard in life, your life will be easy. So I looked at my environment. That was actually what I was finding myself kind of lazy and trapped in and maybe uninspired. So in a 30-day period, we bought a house and moved 8 hours away from our friends, our family, and completely transplanted ourselves in a new environment simply because we wanted to be pushed outside of our comfort zone to experience something new and different, moved away from Vanessa's hometown, her entire family, our friend group. That's the core of where our business was. And it was a hard decision to make, but I know that if I was getting comfortable and lazy at this point, that, it's a slippery slope before you start going downhill from there. And I know that I need to be hungry. I need to be in a growth environment. And so I had to invoke massive change on our environment, kind of shock the system, and it really boosted us. I feel inspired by the environment I'm in now, the change that comes from it. So I hope that you leave this event, and if you're not in that environment, that you're inspired and motivated to take the effort and energy it is to recreate and to get into that environment, that you invest in your company's convention, you invest in this program. It really comes down to how much are you willing to invest in your future and your dreams to create the best environment for success. I'm so glad that you guys have made the decision to be here live, to be here online. This is a great growth environment. You can tell from all the speakers, everyone here is hungry to give you personal growth. Network marketing is a personal development program attached to a compensation plan, and we are here as leaders because we want to help you grow. We want to see growth from you, and we believe in you. We have a great speaker coming up after us. His name is Fred. He's going to be discussing the law of modeling. So I encourage you to give him a big, warm welcome. Thank you for your time. Enjoy.